All right, so this is a video I wanted to do about the results of the debate and just talk about some of the stories that are in the headlines right now. First of all, oh my God, there was a debate on the 14th. I think that was Thursday night. And can you say epic? Can you say epic? Oh my God. Bernie freaking Sanders, man, just whooping all manner of ass from his opening statement all the way to the end. He was just hammering at Hillary. Overall, I thought his performance was excellent. I mean, a couple people are saying that, yeah, he stumbled here and there, but I think you guys are just really overthinking this and being overly critical. Some people are even saying Hillary was better stylistically. And yes, in the first part of the debate, I will give her that. She was a lot better stylistically than Bernie. But Bernie was speaking truth and reality and not giving bullshit answers to the questions. As to the questions, I thought Dana Bash did a great job with her question. Wolf Blitzer's questions were, typical Wolf Blitzer questions. Just a lot of bullshit. And Errol, I forgot his last name. His questions were so pro-Hillary. Just literally repeating the common Clinton campaign talking points. I haven't done a bit of digging yet, but I am 100% sure that there is some ties between Errol and Hillary Clinton. Either he used to work for her campaign or something about that. Because all the questions were obvious softballs and just gimmies for her, And he was asking Bernie a lot of really fucked up questions. But on to the substance of stuff. There are some stuff that I saw last night that I didn't really like. For one, they asked Bernie a tough question as how he would go about breaking up the banks. And what he said is that he would have the Secretary of the Treasury assess the banks to identify the ones that are most at risk and then give the banks a mandate that they have to dismantle themselves. Personally, I disagree with that approach. And I understand why Bernie is doing it. He's doing it because he wants the market to take care of itself, basically. But just basically tell them that they have to do it. Give them an ultimatum to pay for it. But personally, what I would prefer to see is for Bernie to straight up say he'd nationalize the banks. Put all of the corporate execs in prison and nationalize the banks. Do the same model that Iceland did. Nationalize them, have the government restructure them themselves, and then turn it back over to private enterprise. That, to me, is the correct way to deal with this situation. Bernie is kind of painted in a box where he cannot say that, because if he does, oh my God, socialism, 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 So that's the reason why he's approaching it from a free market point of view. But personally, I think that is the way we should go about solving the problem. And fuck the media. They're already calling him a socialist anyway, so why the fuck not? What do you have to lose? So, on that issue, yes. And then the other issue that I had a bit of disagreement with Sanders about was on the guns issue. Dude, you are correct on this issue. Hillary's stance on this issue is complete and utter bullshit. And the Sandy Hook victims, yeah, their stance on this is complete and utter bullshit. And yes, it sucks that I said that. And yes, I feel bad that you lost your children. But it wasn't the gun manufacturer's fault for that. This argument to sue companies for somebody who uses their products to do something illegal is so freaking stupid. All right, let me put it to you this way. If somebody goes out and buys a brand new Ford Mustang, right? A Mustang GT, and then goes street racing with it and kills and accidentally loses control and hits somebody on the side of the street. Should the victim of that accident, their families have the right to sue Ford? Was that Ford's fault for doing that? Did a Ford engineer get behind the wheels and turn the car into that person that got hit? No. Understand something. We cannot go so far into this idea of litigation that we lose track of the simple concept of personal responsibility. And no, this is not a right-wing talking point, and this is not an NRA talking point. This is just a common sense talking point. A car is not responsible for how it's used. Just like how a gun manufacturer, if he makes a gun and he sends it to suppliers, the supplier sells it legally, they cannot be held legally responsible for if somebody decides to flip out and use it. I mean, how the fuck are you going to enforce that? What do you want the manufacturers to do? Do you want every single time they sell a gun that they have to then follow the people and go follow up with every one of their sales and make sure, hey, did you use your gun to shoot that person? Or are you planning to use your gun to kill somebody in the future? No. It's such a dumb freaking argument. And I disagree with that law completely. And I disagree with the idea of suing a gun manufacturer because somebody in your family died from gun violence. Guess what? It wasn't the gun manufacturer who pulled the trigger. It's the killer who pulled the trigger. That's who should be held responsible for this. So I am 100% against that. Now, that said, I agree with Bernie's stance on strawman purchases. So what this is about is, it's pretty freaking obvious why we have the gun show loophole. The gun show loophole is there to sell weapons to the drug cartels. That's the whole point of it. And that's the reason why no politician will ever shut it down. Because they want it there, because it's profitable. Right? On that, it makes sense. So what am I saying is, if you decide that you have a gun, you bought a gun legally, and you decide that you want to sell your gun to somebody, bring it to a gun store, turn it in there, and then let the gun store take care of the sale of the weapon so that they'll put the person through a background check and everything, and they'll sell the gun legally. That makes sense. When you go to a gun show to purchase a gun, you have to follow a background check, just like everything else. That makes sense. Because what's happening right now is that people will go to a gun store, gun show, they'll buy a bunch of weapons, and then they'll come out and somebody will meet them in the parking lot from the cartels and offer them a lot more money than they just paid for to buy the gun. And that's how that loophole works. Bernie Sanders is for ending that loophole. Every Democrat is for ending that loophole. Every Republican using common sense is for ending that loophole. It'll never get done because people want to sell guns to the cartels and it's profitable. You know? But at the same time, this idea of suing gun manufacturers is not related to that law, to the strawman purchases. It's a completely separate issue. And it's a stupid fucking concept. So, you know, with that said, I want to talk about some other stuff that's been going on in the news. Pope Francis invites Bernie Sanders to the Vatican, to Rome, to come speak about creating a moral economy. Oh, and the Hillary Clinton campaign is so butthurt about it. Oh, they're so butthurt. Oh, they're so freaking butthurt. And it's freaking hilarious. I love every minute of it. And there was some speculation that he wouldn't get a chance to meet with the Pope. I saw a news story this morning that the Pope and Bernie ended up meeting together and had a 5-minute conversation before the Pope got on his flight to go to Greece. The Pope, yes, you heard me right. The Pope made time to speak to Bernie Sanders. I mean, what more needs to be said about that? Another thing I saw too that made me freaking pissed was something on Fox Business of all channels. GM, General Motors, the same company that conservatives like to call government motors, that President Obama gave $51 billion to bail them out in 2010. That same freaking company, based on SEC filings, only paid, guess what? $5 million in taxes to the US government. $5 million. You know how much they paid to China? $908 million. So let me explain that again. $5 million to the US government in taxes. $908 million to the Chinese government. And when GM was on difficult straits, we, all of us, you watching this video, they took $51 billion from our taxes and gave it to GM. Why didn't GM get that shit from China? This is the kind of bullshit that Bernie is talking about and what he's talking about ending. They only paid $5 million in taxes. I don't care what any conservative or anybody has to say. That shit is inexcusable. And that needs to end. So anyway, thank you for watching my rant. Oh, and I wanted to talk about one other issue. And this is Bernie's answer on Israel v. Palestine.